I remember when I first got in, even as a second lieutenant, talking to the major was a big deal. And so chaplains aren't like that, of course. And once you get to know a chaplain, you're like, oh, they're here for me. And it doesn't matter what rank they are. They could be a one-star general, and it wouldn't matter because they're there for the airmen.
Welcome back to Blacksnake Bytes. I'm your host, Tech Sergeant Kathleen LaCorte. Today we have in the studio with us Chaplain Miller and Chaplain Assistant Rita Jimenez. Thanks for joining us today, Chaplain Miller. It's really exciting to have you in the studio today because I really enjoy talking to airmen on the base and getting an in-depth explanation of their job on the base. The chaplain's office is such an important office for serving Blacksnakes. So thanks for coming today.
You're so welcome. I'm thrilled to be here. And I love this podcast, and I'm just honored that you invited me and Tech Sergeant Jimenez to be here with you today.
Thanks. Can you give us your story of how you joined the military and got into being a chaplain? I know you came from the Army. Is that correct?
One weekend, my wife and I were visiting her parents, and her father served as an Army National Guard chaplain. I had no connection to the military, no idea what they did in the military. It always kind of scared me when I saw him in uniform because it was like intimidating to have your father-in-law in the military uniform, or at least it was for me. And so I asked him, like, what do you even do on these drill weekends? And he shared a little about what he did. And I was in seminary actually training to be a pastor. And here he was, a chaplain in the military. I was like, well, could I go with you on this drill weekend thing and shadow? Because it sounds really interesting. And he's like, sure. So he brought me with him one Saturday, and I got to go through the whole day of drill. And he went from one person to the next, and just caught up, talked about life. Some people shared some deeper things, and he was able to listen and maybe help them a little. Offered a prayer for one guy, and then they ran a PT test, and I saw the people in last place when they're coming around, that those who had finished first ran back and ran in with those who were finishing last for the run, and it just blew me away. I thought that kind of camaraderie is incredible. And I left that day knowing that I wanted to be in the United States military as a chaplain. It just looked incredible. So I joined, I was chaplain candidate in the Ohio Army National Guard for 2.5 years. And I did a year as a chaplain candidate in the Arizona Army National Guard. And then became a full chaplain at that point, and was a chaplain in the Army for, I think, 7 years before I saw the light and came over to the Air National Guard, which is sort of funny because when you're in the Army, they call the Air Force the dark side because they lose so many people to the Air Force.
To the dark side.
Yes. They're tired of it. But for me, it really has been just a wonderful experience. I work full-time at the VA hospital in Marion, and my supervisor is Chaplain Wayne Bearden, who is also a chaplain, or at the time was a chaplain here at the wing. Now he's our wing chaplain. But he, after the vacancy became open, when Chaplain Lundy went to the 181st, he recruited me over to here to be a chaplain on this team. And being an Air Guard chaplain has been the highlight of my career so far. Just a wonderful role, and also a wonderful place to be. The 122nd Fire Wing is very chaplain friendly. We're well integrated into the units, at even squadron and office levels. Almost everyone knows a chaplain on base. And that's not how it is at every wing. So it's really a great place to get my first, and hopefully I'll do my whole career here at the 122nd.
That's one thing I really appreciate about the 122nd Fighter Wing in the Blacksnake community is they encourage airmen to be open about their faith and not be ashamed to pray and to acknowledge that, if you believe in God, that He is someone that we can reach out to and that He does have a powerful influence in our lives.
Well, I haven't been around, but what I hear is there are very few units in the Air National Guard that have integrated the spiritual care of chaplaincy into the unit, every squadron so well, every office so well, as we have here at the 122nd. And so it is really a unique and wonderful place to get to work and be open about being a Christian or being a chaplain, even in my case, to be welcomed when I come into an office. And it is a great atmosphere to work in.
Rita, you were one of the first people that kind of welcomed me into the Blacksnake family when I first joined public affairs. We've been friends and coworkers, learned a lot together. You've taught me a lot of things. So what was that like going from a high-performance job where you're always on the go, you're kind of like more in the public eye, to more of a behind-the-scenes caring for people? What was that like?
Tremendously, a huge change, life-changing change. It was, for me, it was just, I had to become a different person. And a lot of people kind of knew me as just this person the person's going to go do the photos, or person who's going to, go tell the story. She's moving like at the speed of light. She's gone all constantly moving. This slowing of down of it was really just so dramatic. And at the end of the day, going into religious affairs, it just changed me as a person.
So can you talk about some of the training that you went through to become a chaplain's assistant and how it's affected you and how it's changed your perspective coming back to the fighter wing after going through that training?
Everyone is prior service. So you're not dealing with a lot of, pipeliners who they're so new and they have to learn how to be in the Air Force today plus do the job. So you have a lot of grown-ups who basically in their people who have experience, and I'm kind of glad they go that route, honestly, because the suicide topic is pretty intense. And for someone who's really new in the Air Force, now that not only are they dealing with their own issues, now they got in learning how to be an airman, but they also have to now be able to speak on level to adults, like very much older people. They have to be able to receive them. Like we can intervene even with an officer. If an officer came up to me and said, "I need to talk this out," but I'm not ready to talk to a chaplain yet, we can do that. We can put a bleep, even stop. If they need a vent, we can do that. Enlisted can come to me as well. Like anybody can come to us if they need. If they're just not, because sometimes they see the chaplains as, they're all religious and they're just going to put their faith on me. And that is absolutely not the case. Our chaplains are very neutral when it comes to the big topics. If you need to talk it out, it doesn't always have to be a big topic. You can come to us and talk about good stuff. It's like, hey, guess what? I got promotion today. But they're not trying to sell you their religion. Absolutely not. That's not the case, and I want people to understand that. And they teach us that in school, because they actually teach us all the faiths. So actually I know how to set up you train to set up for a Muslim, their prayer time, the Jewish faith as well, and just all of them, Buddhist, Protestant, Catholic service, Orthodox. We have Orthodox chaplain here. Things like that, we have to know how to set up for it, and we have to provide for it. If we can't do it, we need to track somebody down who can.
Well, and your job is really important. I think about how you said being enlisted is an asset, and it is. I noticed as I've gotten more rank, which for me is kind of nice, but then on the other hand, it's kind of not, because it's harder for people who are enlisted, maybe lower enlisted. Mm-hmm. You're an E1, E2 to go up to a major. Is kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember when I first got in, even as a second lieutenant, talking to the major was a big deal. And so chaplains aren't like that, of course. And once you get to know a chaplain, you're like, oh, they're here for me, and it doesn't matter what rank they are. They could be a 1-star general, and it wouldn't matter because they're there for the airmen. And you help bridge that gap because, like you said, people come to you not just because you're enlisted, but because you're a nice person and you have a quality, a warm quality about you. I've noticed in our work with Patriot Flight, I don't know if maybe it's mom powers that you're channeling because they're probably a lot of them around your son's age, or maybe a little younger to up to his age, but you can come alongside and just put your arm around them, and they feel comfortable. And I've seen you connect really well with a lot of them, where I don't always, and I'm good at getting up front and doing the big show, and even that, I feel like just having you there, you make me feel comfortable enough to do the public speaking part and be goofy and really confident in myself.
I'm the straight guy.
Yeah. And you play the straight man or the straight woman, where I make the jokes and you give the look. Like, sure. And we have a really good partnership.
So it's been great, though. And that's we're supposed to work together, because the reason why we have these RST teams is because in a deployed situation, they're non-combatants. They are not allowed to use weapons, right? So RST is
Religious Support Team.
Yeah, thank you. We are a team so it's I'm the gun, essentially. I protect the chaplain in the field while we're in combat. In a deployed situation, because they cannot yield a weapon, so somebody's got to protect them, right? So not only are you protecting them, you're supporting them too as well. Any of their needs that they need, for their services, and also even in their like today is a good example of that. When they're counseling someone, and they might be put in an unsafe situation, I have to, be able to protect them in that situation too. It's not just in the field; it can be here at home. Got to be able to make sure they're okay, checking on them, make sure are you doing okay. I mean, I even watch their health. We have chaplains that maybe aren't feeling so good. Maybe had it. Because it's emotionally draining. The work that maybe you don't see them out spinning wrenches. But what they are doing is they're taking on a lot of information.
This is why I really enjoy speaking face-to-face with airmen in different jobs and AFSCs, because it's one thing to say the chaplain's assistant supports the chaplain. Okay, that's understandable. But when you actually break it down and explain, what does that mean? Where you're actually watching out for the protection of their life when they're potentially in a tenuous situation or a very highly emotional situation. That kind of changes the whole scope of what does that mean to support the chaplain.
We have to be ready to fight, just like anybody else. We are a target, and chaplain could be a target too. Enemy doesn't know the difference. They just see a guy in a suit, the same uniform I'm wearing. They're not thinking that they see that itty bitty cross on his chest there. You know what I'm saying? But the difference is he's not going to fight back. He's not going to fire back. So
one of the duties, as you talked about, was to support the chaplain and even to protect the chaplain if necessary. What are the other duties that the chaplain's assistant will handle throughout the day? Especially
on Sundays, we're going to set up for the services that we provide here at the 122nd. We provide a Protestant service and a Catholic service, and now we are going to be providing an Orthodox service for our Orthodox members. That's pretty neat. Good to see that on Sunday coming up. And when I say set up, that means so that each religion has their different ways they present their service on the altar, or they have a cross, or like Catholics have Jesus on the cross. During his crucifixion, they have facing a certain direction, and then as Protestants, they don't. They have it facing the opposite direction, where it's just a smooth, and then like, because there's just each faith group's representation. We just make sure we provide a clean, neutral space all the time too, because as best as we can provide in this situation, because we really don't have a chapel. It's not really a chapel; it's just a room. At the end of the day, we do our best though to, like I said, provide for our members, and that's part of my job, is to ensure that we're providing the materials we need for their worship.
Can you also talk about your experiences working with the Patriot Flight? That seems like a really cool, just being able to usher the new Blacksnakes into the community.
It is such fun to work with the Patriot Flight. So these trainees come in and they're in their matching T-shirts or hoodies or whatever they're wearing, and Rita calls them kids. And so the kids but they're not kids, they're trainees. And so they're in, but they just haven't gone to basic training yet. And it was probably, I've been with Patriot Flight since it was student flight first, and for the 5+ years I've been here. And so you think about over that time, every new recruit that has gone through that program, I've gotten to touch their life in maybe just a small way, in some larger ways, just making that a really strong connection during their time there. And they're spread out all over the base now, and they'll say hi. Never knew I had so many friends when I walked through base. Hey, Chaplain Miller. Hey, Chaplain. I'm like, who are you? You look different. But it's really, it's fun. We go over there and we'll do a little introduction about what does a chaplain do, what does a religious affairs airman or chaplain assistant do, how can we support you during your time, and then talk a little about just what is it like to be a Blacksnake. You're part of a family now. You didn't know it, but you are. And then I usually go off on some life lesson that's applicable.
And the Air Force song, don't forget that.
And, and I bring my guitar and I sing, and I have a joke that the Air Force song is what most people know is this titled "Lean on Me" by Bill Withers. And I love the song "Lean on Me," but I call it the Air Force song because in the Air Force we have to lean on each other, and we cannot make it by ourselves. And the whole wingman concept is so powerful because it displays that together we can make it through any adversity, but if we're by ourselves, we can't. In fact, the wingman concept was so powerful that the Army adopted it. They had to rename it. They call it the Battle Buddy system, and so they'll call each other battle buddies. But we invented it here in the Air Force. It was first here. So yeah, I'll sing a song. Sometimes we'll be walking over there, and Tech Sergeant Jimenez will say, "What are you going to talk about?" And I'll say something. She's like, "Oh, don't do that." And so she helps keep me within some guardrails.
We also do fun things too, like that speed of travel. Like, is it the speed friending?
Yes,
that is so fun.
I found years ago. I found this game almost called Speed Friending, and we set them up like they're speed dating in chairs, and you get maybe a minute and 30 seconds to talk to each person, and then you rotate. And it is incredible. We'll walk into a room. So we've done this maybe 2 or 3 times in the past year with the Patriot fighters. And we'll walk into the room, and they're all just sitting there silent or looking at their phones or just staring like in fear at the front of the room. I don't know, a lot of anxiety. And no one's really talking to each other. And we're like, okay. And we'll do this whole speed friending, and then it's over, and we'll bring them back into the room, have them set everything up, and they sit back down in their seats, except you can't even hear anything because there's so many people having conversations now because that barrier's been broken down and they're able to be friends. And so that's really a great game or exercise that we do with them that actually does help form that wingman.
I think the whole base should do that. Honestly, I know it sounds weird.
Yeah.
But like all the different groups, if we have time, how we have these events for families, and like maybe we should just have like a day where everybody just like offices meet offices, where ops group and maintenance group and everybody comes across the tracks, and because we're always working. Let's just have a day where we shut down and be a speed friend. And I mean, I think that would make our whole base like literally like get to know each other a whole lot more.
Oh, absolutely. Great idea.
Yeah, that's my departing word.
Your departing wisdom.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like it. I was just thinking about with PA, it kind of forces you to do that. So, we have to go out into the different shops, or we, go on the trips with the jets, or it just forces you to have to get out and talk to people in maintenance or fuels or munitions or weapons, and suddenly you're like, wow, I didn't realize like there's so many interesting people out there with so many different skill sets and just really cool personalities. And I think that's what I've enjoyed about PA, and I guess with the chaplain's office too, is that you really that's your job, is to get out there and talk to people. And there's just so many really cool opportunities and a lot of really cool Blacksnakes on this base.
Yeah, one of my goals as a chaplain, I've joined the Chaplain Corps in 2009, and I've always had this idea in the back of my head that I want to be the guy that people pick up the phone and they call when something bad happens. The person that they would turn to, or at least an option, that me well enough that if something were to happen, that I'd be someone you could trust and reach out to. And I think of, I had been in this unit in the Kentucky National Guard for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I had made some really good connections during that time. And my first year in the unit, I've never been in a unit like this since, but there were over 20 suicide interventions that I did with suicidal soldiers. And one night I got the call I never really wanted to get, but I was blessed to be the person that he called. He said, "Chaplain, I've got a gun in my hand and I'm ready to pull the trigger, but I thought I'd call you first." And of course my heart just stopped. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I start praying like crazy in my head. And I say to him, okay, well, I'm glad you called. What's going on? And just listening to him and hearing his pain. And we had developed a good amount of trust in the years, a couple of years leading up to that phone call. And he just poured his heart out. And this part of being a chaplain is that you hold what people tell you in confidence. Well, part of that is that when someone tells me, or in that situation, when I was told that, I legally could not tell someone else that this person has a gun in his hand, and I couldn't call the police or anything. So at some point in that conversation, though, I'll credit God with this because it definitely wasn't me, but he's shown his light into the conversation, shown his light into this young man's soul, and I could feel it turn. And instead of being focused on the negative, there was just like a little spark of hope. And I grabbed onto that hope, and I was like, oh my goodness, did you just hear what you just said? and started kind of focusing on what if you lived past tonight. And I made him promise. It was 2 days away from drill. I said, will you promise me that we will talk at drill? You will be there. You are not going to kill yourself. And I will be there. I promise you I will be there. And he said, I promise. And so we met at drill and talked some more. And that was, I'm thinking, seven or 8 years ago at this point. And that young man, well, he's not even that young anymore. He's alive. Because of that night, he's alive. And that's really my heart, is to make that kind of connection with as many people as I can, that because life does throw us some really horrible things, and really God's the only one who can handle all of those things. And one of the things we say as a chaplain, we are representatives of the holy. And so if anyone can bring God into the situation, or bring hope, or bring light into that darkness, then there actually can be life after today.
How does that affect you? It's got to be super emotional for you going through that yourself.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. For me, I was scared to death when I first started out chaplaincy to talk with someone who might be suicidal, because what am I going to do? And then feeling like the weight of it's on me. And I had a chaplain early on tell me, I forget how he said it, but he's like, I love these. It's like just amazing things happen when you're talking to someone who's that low. And what I found is that's true. It's like it can only go up from here. And so there's so much hope. All you have to do is help them see it. And that's what I found, is that I actually started enjoying when someone would say, oh, life's going really bad, and they start sharing all these things, and they teach us to ask the question, well, are you thinking of killing yourself? And people kept saying yes to me. I'm like, you'd think I'd stop asking the question, but
because normally you would expect them to say no.
Well, yeah, you would expect them to, and so I started to really believe that if you're that close to killing yourself, why lie about it? What's the point? And so they don't. I don't think people often lie about that. And when they said yes, I would feel this little jolt of excitement, because well, now I get to help someone who's hit rock bottom. and I don't think it really takes as much skill as that's what I was afraid of going into it. It's going to take this skill level that I don't have. And I'm not an incredibly skilled counselor. I'm not Dr. Phil or someone who could really help you work out what's going on in your brain. But I am someone who has a lot of love in my heart to care for others. And so what I found is when I just cared and listened to what they're going through and showed that I genuinely care about their life, it made enough difference for them that they chose to live. And not all of them were on the verge. Some were just, really the majority of people were just thinking about it. Well, maybe this is an option. That's very different than I have a plan and I'm going to do it now. Mm-hmm. I did have, about a year ago, a young guy called me and he said, I just had to, and we hadn't talked in years. This guy, I was the chaplain for an officer candidate school for a year. And during this time, there was a candidate going to become an officer who was beat up really bad, and his skull was smashed in and his brain was swelling. They removed half of his skull, and he had to wear a helmet while his brain decompressed. I don't know what it was, or all the inflammation in his brain had to go down over the course of months. and I visited him in his home during that time, and met with him and his fiancee, and who later became his wife, and really just tried to care for him. He was going through a really crazy thing, and I have a picture somewhere of this guy without half of his skull, and you could touch his brain by putting your hands on his skin on his head. It was really bizarre. And they eventually put the skull back in, and he could never serve in the military again, but he was looking into becoming a chaplain himself. And so he called me and said, "Chaplain Miller, I had to call and talk to the guy who started it all." And I was just touched because I had no idea. I had visited him. I cared for him. I would text him for updates over the course of the next year, and we'd talk every once in a while. But I had no idea that the little things I did impacted him in such a big way that now he is going to become a chaplain. And so the stuff like that is really the most rewarding thing. And really it just shows, and I don't think I'm like the top chaplain. I'm probably, out of everyone in our office, the lowest in every comparison you can have. Maybe other than humor, I might have the, I don't know.
You're a great storyteller.
Yeah. But I don't try to compare myself. We're all a team, and we work with each other's strengths. And I'm just saying, I don't do a lot, but it's fun. The little things I do make a big impact because, I'll use an analogy I read in a very special book once. But it's like a little mustard seed. It's the smallest of seeds, but it grows to become the largest plant in the garden. And Jesus uses that to describe the kingdom of God. But that's those little kindnesses we do for others it's just like that. It grows its own plant out of this little thing that you've done. And that's where I gain a lot of encouragement.
You've ministered to so many people that have dealt with those despondent feelings of suicide. What would you say to someone who is listening today who is struggling with those feelings? What is your message to them today?
Well, I'd probably tell them two things. One, oftentimes you don't share what's going on because you don't want to be a burden to others, or maybe it's too private, or whatever reason you have. But know that the people who care about you want you to talk to them. And so I'd encourage you to share that you've been thinking of killing yourself, or at least that the thought has crossed your mind, and give them the opportunity to love you in the way that they would like to. And then the second part is that there is hope. There's so much hope. The future's not written. It doesn't have to be like the past. In fact, today can be the day that changes everything and a turning point. So don't let everything that's happened get you so discouraged that you feel like the only way out is to kill yourself, because there is another way forward that involves living and involves a happy life in your future. You can talk to any one of us chaplains, and we split up the squadrons as far as coverage goes, and I'm covering security forces, FSS, and Patriot flight, but really no one's going to stop you from talking to me, and that's how all of us feel. Like if you come into our office on a drill weekend, or you call our full-time chaplain here, or go through your chain of command, even just to get our cell phone numbers, because I'm sure your commander has a chaplain's cell phone number, and we all would love to hear from you about anything going on in your head. It doesn't need to be suicide.
No matter what your rank, if you're talking about military members, don't be afraid to talk. You know, even if maybe your supervisor might be the one who's triggering you, and you like, I don't have anybody to talk to, and you're like, and maybe you're in a rank structure. Well, the next in command is the commander, so it's like, okay, I don't have anybody there to talk to, and you're left and right, and you're like, who in the world can I talk to? This is you feel like there's. That's where, like I said, religious affairs airmen can talk to you. And even if it's like, well, but they're enlisted, how can I talk to it? They're they don't, even if it doesn't seem a right fit, you might be surprised.
As a chaplain, what is your favorite Bible passage that means the most to you?
Oh, that's hard.
You probably have several favorites.
I should have an answer, like people ask this. But as I read the Bible, I'm always reading through different places. And so that the answer to your question changes over time. I can say that this month, chapters 3 and 4 of the book of John are just fascinating me. One is the story of a man named Nicodemus who comes to Jesus in the middle of the night in a secret, and he is a Pharisee. He's one of the religious leaders, part of the people that are persecuting Jesus, really, or part of their order, not necessarily the person doing it. And he asks Jesus what he needs to do to be saved. And Jesus says, you need to be born again. And Nicodemus is like, how am I going to enter back into my mother's womb? And Jesus rolls his eyes. And, at least that's what I read into it. So, and there's this whole discourse, and you might, right in the middle of that is this verse that a lot of us Christians memorize early on, is, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And you got to picture Nicodemus hearing Jesus say that to him. And yet at the end of the meeting, Nicodemus does not become one of Jesus's disciples. He chooses not to follow him. And then the next chapter, Jesus meets an outcast woman from an outcast people. We call her the woman at the well. And in this interaction, he offers her living water that she may never have to thirst again. And he's talking about the kingdom of God. And she accepts, and she spreads the news, and most of the village comes to become followers of Jesus. And just that contrast of a religious person hearing the most profound statement maybe Jesus made, John 3:16, in denying Jesus or not following him, and then this lowly woman hearing Jesus' words of life and grasping on to them and following him. And it's kind of, for me, probably where do I see myself? Well, as a chaplain, I'm one of the clergy. I'm one of the religious leaders. So I gotta use Nicodemus, the Pharisee, as a mirror for myself. Am I more like that and less like this woman, when really the contrast that the author's trying to make is, no, we need to be more like the lowly woman and her eagerness for what Jesus had to offer.
So I have a question. If there's an airman on base who doesn't believe in God or just isn't religious at all, how does the chaplain play a role in their life, or can the chaplain play a role in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share a story which might be helpful. One, I've already said that connection is really what it comes down to. For me, what is spirituality? It's my connection with my Creator, and then my connection with everyone else. And so when I am able to bond with another person on a below the surface level, for me, that's a spiritual thing. My spirit being with your spirit, spiritual. So if I use that definition, it's really easy. You don't have to have a religion or a faith or even the same faith as me to have a spiritual connection with me. Maybe we can meet on that level. It's probably been about a year ago, actually, when I was leading this weekly group. My full-time job is at the VA hospital, so I'm either here with airmen or at the VA with veterans, and a lot of the similar types of people, I'll tell you, no matter how old you are. But there's a guy who's just a little bit older than me who was a staunch atheist, and he came through our rehab program that I teach a weekly class at. And my classes are related to spirituality, but cover topics like forgiveness, grief and loss, and but have somewhat of a spiritual component and a lot of different things. And when he left the program after 90 days there and had suffered through 12 weeks of my classes, his last day he came up to me and said, "Chaplain, you had the best groups out of everyone here." And they were, he's comparing me to their like certified therapists who deal with drug rehab and all this. And I was just blown away. I said, "But you're an atheist." And he said, "You know what? I just took the gold nuggets and I left everything else. And everything you talked about, though, was so good. And I really appreciate you." And so for me, one thing he taught me as an atheist is that some of these things that I might see as religious or overly spiritual, he saw as that I was able to make it accessible for him even as an atheist. And he said I never judged him or made him feel lesser because of his beliefs. And so he gave me a great gift in that, and I really appreciated that.
And it's not all religion all day long. These are normal people, who with normal lives and children and life things happening. I want people to understand that about this office. When they hear the word chapel or religion or key words that seem, and some people cringe at that, and I don't want them to feel that way because they need to understand it's not like that. I got touched, and that sounds terrible. So, touched by God.
Chaplain
touched by God.
Chaplain
Okay,
C.
so
Oh, brother.
No, the power of God touched me while I was in, and it changed me. But that's just my path. But somebody else who might, either want to be a part of the team or just wants to know more about the chaplain's office, they might find it a different way. Different thing. It's not all religious. That's what I think. That's where I guess maybe a misnomer about.
Yeah,
the
maybe
office.
it's more about connection, being able to connect with each other on a deep level. And yeah, so each chaplain is quirky and lovable in their own way. Chaplain Mindson loves a good conspiracy theory and will really dive into the details, and it makes us crack up. Chaplain Bruner knows every song lyric ever written, and he was a music major, I believe, in college, and just and actually has a really good singing voice too. I love sci-fi books and movies, and could talk to you all day about that. Chaplain Bearden, there's a running joke that he always gets food for his kids, but at the restaurant he says, "Can I have that?" But he'll ask for things like your side of lettuce, or are you gonna eat those tortillas? And he says he'll bring home this or like the leftover pico de gallo from his Mexican stuff, and the kids just love it and they jump on it. He's got like 6 kids, so we all have our funny things about us that make us. And I love everyone in our office because of that. And yeah, so I guess we're trying to make it seem like we're approachable because we are.
They are. They are absolutely approachable.
Yeah.
Thank you both for being here today, for sharing your time with us. I know you're super busy serving all the airmen on base and work really hard at that. So I just wanted to say thank you. And good luck, Rita. with all of your future endeavors, and thank you for your service. It's been an honor to work with you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And thanks for having me on the show. And wait till tomorrow, Rita. We're going to go out with a bang.
This is the official podcast of the 122nd Fighter Wing. Views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of the 122nd Fighter Wing, Air National Guard, or United States government. No endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.